Bolt fam, take a deep breath, because the vibe in Los Angeles today is insane. After an epic primetime battle, new injury concerns popped up, a behind-the-scenes move on offense, a quiet shift in this team's identity, and a locker room detail that could swing the entire season. There's news that fires you up, news that scares you, and a twist nobody really sees coming. None of this is exaggeration. It's the kind of day that defines franchises. You won't believe what we've got today. So sit down, drop a like, and let's jump straight into the news. And while we're still trying to digest that crazy Monday Night Football against the Eagles, another drama is already knocking on the door, getting this roster recovered enough to face the Chiefs at Arrowhead on a short week. It was a war, overtime, a ton of contact, a ton of hits, and now the Chargers basically have a few days to pull their bodies out of the mud and be ready for a game that can change the entire season. It's not an exaggeration to say this Sunday feels like a mini playoff game in the AFC West. On the other side, the scenario is totally different from what we're used to. The Chiefs are coming off a loss to the Texans. They're 6-7 on the season, and according to playoff simulations out there, sitting around a 12% chance to make the postseason. In other words, for them, losing to the Chargers at home is almost like signing their own elimination. That turns this matchup into a do-or-die final for Kansas City, and a golden opportunity for our lightning bolt to sweep a division rival for the first time since 2013. But there's one detail that put everyone on alert in the Bolt fam: the first injury report of the week. It was expected to see some guys being held back after that street fight against Philadelphia, but one specific name lit up the warning signs: Lad Mu-Kon-Key, listed as limited with a foot issue. We're talking about a wide receiver who's become a key piece of this offense, especially on third downs and quick separation routes. Anything involving a foot for a skill player is scary because it directly affects burst, change of direction, and confidence in his routes. And it gets worse. On top of being banged up, he still has to deal with travel, a hostile environment, heavier weather, and an early kickoff in Kansas City. The recovery window is tiny, the margin for error is zero, and the coaching staff has to be perfect with their planning. So here's the big question. Do the Chargers risk playing McConkey without him being 100%, going all in on this chance to basically bury their rival? Or do they hold back a bit and think about preserving him for the final stretch of the playoff run? Thursday and Friday will say a lot about that plan. Until then, fans are glued to every update because this situation can completely change the game plan for Sunday. And if there's one thing we've learned this season, it's that when it comes to the Chargers, any detail turns into an emotional roller coaster for everyone in Los Angeles. And believe me, this isn't even the only tough decision the franchise has to deal with behind the scenes this week. While everyone was focused on the standings, the injuries, and that season-on-the-line vibe against the Chiefs, a quiet move behind the scenes flew under the radar. But it might have a much bigger impact than it seems. Tanner McLaughlin joining the practice squad. It's not the kind of name that blows up a headline, but for anyone who follows roster building closely, this smells like long-term planning. The kind of move that only really makes sense a couple of weeks later, and the Bolt fam is already trying to connect the dots. McLaughlin, drafted by the Bengals in the 6th round, is exactly the type of tight end modern NFL teams love to develop. Big, athletic, with the frame to block, and more importantly, clean enough routes to create separation on checkdowns and in the red zone. The problem? He came into the league with an injury history and was waived with an injury designation right after camp. He only managed to appear in 2 games in 2024. Now, fully recovered, Los Angeles pulls the trigger and brings him into the system in a critical week. That's not a coincidence. Cutting Josh Kaltenberger opens up space exactly where the Chargers are most vulnerable when they look at the short-term future: offensive depth. Will Dissly is limited in practice. Donald Parham has ridden a roller coaster his entire career. And this offense, already suffering behind a battered offensive line, desperately needs reliable safety valves for Herbert. A hybrid-style tight end can be the difference between a sack and a 6 or 7 yard gain, and on a team that constantly has drives stalling because of protection issues, that's worth gold. Another huge point: the timing. The Chargers bring in McLaughlin in the same week they face a desperate Chiefs team, a defense coordinated by Steve Spagnuolo, who loves to confuse quarterbacks with interior pressure and rotating coverages. An athletic tight end, if he picks up the system quickly, can create vital mismatches, especially against linebackers who have struggled in coverage. The fan reaction has been split. Some are celebrating the move, understanding that any versatile weapon for the offense is welcome. Others are asking, why now? Is this just precaution in case Disley can't go? Is it a setup for a future activation? Or is it the first step in a quiet, larger rebuild on offense, anticipating bigger changes for the final stretch? The fact is, when a team brings in a tight end with raw potential exactly when it needs more creativity on offense, it's not random. It's a sign of recalibration. And it really feels like this staff still has some cards hidden for Sunday. And trust me, there's even more going on in the background that could completely shake up what we expect from this team. As we try to figure out where this offense is headed, there's one truth we can't ignore anymore. The Chargers have found a defensive identity. This didn't happen by accident. It wasn't luck. It was built. It came from adjustments, from understanding that if the offense can't carry the load right now, the defense has to step into the spotlight. And Bolt fam, Monday night was the ultimate proof that this group is ready for it. Even when the game feels like it's slipping away, even when the offense stalls, even when Herbert spends the night running for his life. That win over the Eagles wasn't pretty. It wasn't comfortable. But it showed the only path this team has to stay alive in the playoff race, turning every defensive snap into a punch of its own. 5 forced turnovers, constant pressure, a disciplined secondary, Tony Jefferson playing like a reborn veteran, reading Jalen Hurts as if he had the playbook in his hands. It's the kind of performance that not only wins a game, it changes the energy of a locker room. Players feel when the defense is carrying the weight, and that creates a vibe that spreads through the entire roster. Of course, turnovers are volatile. Nobody forces 5 every week, but what we saw wasn't fluky. It was about execution. The defensive line won one-on-one battles. The front limited the run game in key moments. The coverage was aggressive, smart, patient. That doesn't happen by chance. It happens when a group fully buys into the idea that if the offense isn't clicking, they have to flirt with perfection. And on that night, they absolutely did. There's another layer to this: resilience. No Joe Alt, no Rashawn Slater, an interior offensive line blowing up drives before they even really started. Herbert taking hits, improvising, trying to find space where there wasn't any. Even so, the team still found a way to hang in and win. That's the kind of game that, in past years, the Chargers would lose by a heartbreaking detail. Now they win by sheer stubbornness. For the fan base, it's a mix of surprise and hope. Because finally, there's something concrete to believe in. A defense that doesn't rely on just one star, but on a unit functioning like a real machine. And if that machine keeps running like this, even against explosive offenses like the Chiefs, the Bolt fam can start believing in something bigger. Because if the Chargers really found a solid defensive pillar down the stretch, that changes everything. And believe it or not, the next piece of this puzzle only makes the emotional stakes even higher. While the defense rises and holds everything together, there's another battle happening behind the scenes. One that's all about availability, physical wear and tear, and this roster's ability to show up whole for the biggest game of the season. This week's practice report brought a dangerous mix. Relief for some, concern for many, and a question that just won't leave the minds of the Bolt fam. How long can this team really hold up? 2 names jumped out right away: Keenan Allen and Khalil Mack. Both were listed as DNPS, but this time for a reason that lets fans breathe a little easier. Veteran rest. No new injury, no setback, just essential load management in a short week, right after a brutal, overtime slugfest. The staff knows there is no functional game plan without Allen converting third downs and without Mack terrorizing quarterbacks. They're going to play. That part is clear. But the rest day already shows how draining this stretch has been. The relief, though, doesn't last long when you look at the rest of the list. Darius Davis, Troy Dye, Elijah Molden, and Trey Pipkins all missed practice entirely. Each one represents a piece in different position groups that are already under stress. Davis brings explosion in the return game. Dye is essential depth at linebacker. Molden is one of the few guys who can execute those hybrid adjustments in the secondary. And Pipkins, well, he's part of an offensive line that's already patched together beyond its limit. Every one of those absences lights up a red bulb in the game plan. Then we get to the gray area. The limiteds. Justin Herbert showed up with that left hand issue that's become a weekly worry. He got x-rays right after the win, and thankfully, there's no new damage. But we can't pretend the swelling, the pain, and the impact on his throwing mechanics don't exist. For a quarterback who's playing under constant pressure, any discomfort changes decisions, timing, and confidence in his release. The Chargers have to protect Herbert, and not just physically, but mentally too. Right next to him, Lad McConkey and Will Dissly are also limited. McConkey was already a concern, a foot problem, on a short week, with travel, cold weather, and a hostile field. That's the kind of combo that makes any fan nervous. Dissly, a key piece in blocking and checkdowns, dealing with a shoulder issue, adds even more uncertainty to an offense that already lives on the edge. The feeling inside the Bolt fam is one of silent tension. Not panic, but that clear sense that Sunday is going to demand not just talent, but endurance. The Chargers are walking into a duel that demands body, mind, and soul. And this injury picture might be exactly the emotional trigger that turns this game into a full-on character test for the entire roster. Bolt fam, when you put all of this together, it's obvious. This team is standing at a massive crossroads. Injuries, a quiet offensive reinforcement, a reborn defense, and an exhausted roster heading into a desperate rival's stadium at Arrowhead. Either the Chargers use this week as a powerful emotional turning point, or they risk watching a season full of epic battles slip away on another painful detail. So drop your take in the comments. Do you believe this group can handle the physical and mental pressure it takes to sweep the Chiefs at Arrowhead and turn this game into the beginning of a new era in Los Angeles? And if you're riding with this team all the way, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with that one Chargers fan who needs to hear this today.